I just finished the first 3 lessons of drawabox while also attempting the 250 box challenge. And this is how it went and everything I've learned so far. In case you don't know, Drawabox is an online free course for artists that focuses on art fundamentals. And as someone who has always dreamed of becoming a pro artist someday, I thought that this is the best way to start my art learning journey. Little did I know how mentally draining drawing boxes over and over again can be. In Lesson 0, Uncomfortable gives an introduction to what is Drawbox and what are these art fundamentals, and some instructions on how to do the homework and how to get your work critiqued, and also what tools to use. It also tackles some deeper subjects like your mindset, art block, depression, and many more. For me, the 50% rule came in really handy. This might sound kinda stupid, but I always told myself that I should never draw until I learn how to draw. Moving on to lesson 1, which focuses on teaching you mark making. So before Drawbox, I always used to draw without thinking. For example, if I was sketching, I would just have 10,000 strokes and pick the one that I found the most fitting. Rather than how Drawbox teaches us to be intentional by using techniques such as the ghosting method and the use of the whole arm to get really beautiful, confident strokes. For the exercises for lesson 1, you had to fill 2 pages of the superimposed lines, 1 page of ghosted lines, and 2 pages of ghosted planes. So far, the first 3 exercises focusing on lines were pretty easy, and I only had trouble with overshooting my lines, but accuracy was something that I will get better at with practice. However, the ellipses part scared me. At first, I didn't understand the degree of the ellipse, but using real-life subject helped me understand that simply if the face of the ellipse is rotating away from us, the ellipse becomes thinner. For the ellipse part, we had to fill 2 pages of table of ellipses, 2 pages of ellipse in planes, and 1 page of funnels. The thing that I noticed with my ellipses is the lack of accuracy, since in order to draw the ellipse you have to draw 2 circles. My second one doesn't always match. Now let's move on to the actual boxes. This is where our understanding of 3D space starts. Constructing a box using vanishing point was easy for me because I remember doing that in middle school, but I didn't understand back then why are these lines converging and what is the meaning of vanishing points. Well, I still struggle with understanding perspective, but I know a few tips now which definitely have helped me. I had a lot of misinformation about vanishing point, like there isn't just 1 or 2 or 3, it depends on the form and the conversion of those lines. To simplify things, if we have 1 vanishing point, this means that the other 2 vanishing points are at infinity, and we are facing the surface. If we have 2 vanishing points, the remaining one is at infinity, and we are facing the edge. When we have 3-point perspective, we are facing the corner. For the boxes, we had to fill 1 page of plotted perspective. This exercise was pretty easy since you could use a ruler. The second exercise was rough perspective. This one was pretty hard since no matter how hard I tried, I always failed to have all my lines meet at the same vanishing point, but at least they were converging. The third exercise was to fill 1 page with rotated boxes. Even though this exercise looks overwhelming, personally I found it pretty easy to do. You had the guidelines kinda and you just had to follow them. Finally, you had to fill 2 pages of organic perspective. This one was the most confusing one. You had to keep in mind that these boxes are going to get smaller as they move away, plus the changing in the rotation direction while they move across the curve. I had a lot of trouble with foreshortening and distortion. Now, the 250 box challenge. Yeah, this is the beast. This is what Drawbox is most famous for, and before we even get into it, I would like to confess that I didn't reach 250 boxes. So this is the first page. I was really focused on vanishing points, and as a result I put them way closer, which caused the boxes to be really foreshortened and therefore distorted. Through the challenge, I noticed that I drew rectangular shapes rather than boxes. It was also hard for me to have the lines converge to the same vanishing point. And due to the minor mistakes I do drawing the first lines, the last line never falls into its place. As the challenge went on, I started to intentionally make my boxes less distorted. By the time I reached 150 boxes, I wasn't being intentional at all. I just wanted to be done with the challenge, so I stopped. And that is because I'm lazy. I don't have any other excuses, and I was really just looking forward to seeing what the other lessons were about. Moving on to lesson 2. I was really excited for this one. On the first lesson, we learned how to convey 3D using boxes. Now we are going to use organic form, but in order to do that, I have to believe first that what I was drawing is 3D, using simple rules such as the further the object is, the smaller it gets, and the contour lines to indicate form change. For lesson 2, we had to fill 2 pages of organic arrows and 2 pages of organic forms with contour lines. I did struggle a bit with inaccurate contour lines, but I guess it gets better with practice. After learning how to draw organic forms, we moved to learn how to add texture to them. And from what I have understood, texture is just smaller forms on the surface of the bigger form. And to define texture, we just need to focus on the shadow casted by these small forms. And simply put, the more light hits the form, the less shadow there is, and therefore the less texture. For the texture, we had to fill 1 page of texture analysis and 2 pages of dissection. I thought that these exercises will be enjoyable, but the more I stared at those textures, the more I got dizzy, overwhelmed, and I hated working in small scale. The second part of lesson 2 focuses on construction. Here you get to learn how to observe subjects, identify its basic forms such as boxes and cylinders, and its organic forms, and lastly, flat forms. After that, you need to think of how are all these forms intersecting together, and now use what you have learned to draw. After getting your basic forms, you now add texture based on what you have learned previously. For construction, we had to fill 4 pages of form intersections. And I really did struggle with this exercise. In my head, I could easily imagine like forms in hologram, like intersecting together, but I could never draw those interactions on paper. Whenever I draw 2 forms intersecting together, it always appears as if one form is in front of the other. After that, we had to fill 2 pages of organic intersection. I couldn't find the paper for this exercise, so I'm redoing them digitally for the video. This one is easier than the other one, but I did struggle with knowing if the form is visible or not. Finally, we are moving to drawing real life. No more weird forms, or nah, we are actually going to use what we learned on constructions to construct plants. Starting with leaves. Due to their flat forms, you can see that leaves are just widened arrows. To draw them, I first identify the flow and then add the shape, then some details for the texture. Branches, on the other hand, are just cylinders. After identifying the flow, we draw ellipses on top of it. Keep in mind that the degree of these ellipses should vary according to the branch direction. Finally, we connect them using 1 stroke at a time. For this lesson, Uncomfortable provides some plants demos. These were super helpful, not in teaching me how to draw beautiful flowers, but in teaching me the right process to draw any flower. I would first draw from the reference without following the demo so that I can compare mine to Uncomfortable's and identify my mistakes. And then I will draw from the reference while correcting my mistakes. And this is everything I have done so far. I still have a lot of lessons and exercises left which I will tackle in the upcoming months. But I have seen significant improvement in my understanding and drawing skills. For example, in my last sketches that I did for Inktober, I was easily able to draw my cat even though I had no knowledge about cat anatomy. I just focused on the form, I turned it into easy form and added texture on top of it. I kinda regret not getting my work critiqued or sharing my homework when I first started. I'm planning to share my work from now on, so stay tuned for my next video.